couple items of business. If you'd like to submit a question during our session, feel free to navigate over the Q&A icon and then type your question into the box and just select host from the drop-down menu. You can hit send and then it'll come right to me. And then we'll answer those at the end of the session. We will be recording this session and we'll send you a link in the next few days. And with that, I will pass the ball over to Brenda. Okay. Excellent.
Okay. All right, so now you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So today I'll be talking about using LaunchPad in my course. And I'm Dr. Brenda Leady at the University of Toledo. We're in Toledo, Ohio. And oddly enough, we are the Rockets. So it's appropriate that I'm talking about using LaunchPad. A little bit about me. I have a BA from Hiram College here in Ohio. I went to UT for my master's and my PhD, somehow never managed to leave, and I'm in my 27th year of teaching. Most often I teach introductory majors biology, and I also teach non-majors biology. My interests are in scientific teaching and the use of technology. The course that I use LaunchPad in is called Fundamentals of Life Science. It's a 2-semester introductory biology course for majors. The first semester is evolution, organisms, physiology, ecology, and the second semester is biochemistry, cell biology, and genetics. There's an accompanying lab that goes with both semesters. It's designed for biological sciences majors, but we also get other pre-professional majors, pre-med, pre-ded, pre-whatever. We have a pharmacy school, so we get pre-pharmacy. We have an engineering school, and bioengineering takes this course. We do discourage non-majors because we have a separate course for them. Class sizes can range anywhere from 50 to 300, and it's taught by a group of instructors. We have the same book and the same general agreement on the content and the focus of the course. We started using digital homework a couple years ago before this book, and it was because feedback from students indicated that they were very happy biology didn't have any homework like math, physics, or chemistry. So we thought that we had to get a slice of their time. And originally we learned by making mistakes about what to look for in digital homework products and how to implement them. I use LaunchPad in my course, and I think that if you're asking a student to purchase something, that it should be worth points and it should be used. And so in my course, homework is worth 5% of the grade, which isn't a lot until they get down to their final grade and find out that they just need 1 or 2% more, and then that homework comes in handy. I think it also has value in preparing them for the tests. This is from my syllabus, and I want to emphasize why I assigned them homework in an effort for them to practice so that when they get to the exam that they're ready for that. And then it has a link to my specific course each semester so that they have that in front of them. It's also on Blackboard so that if they would happen to lose the syllabus, they could get another copy of the syllabus and get a link to the homework site. This is quite a bit of writing, but it comes directly from my syllabus. And if you're interested in the language, I could always supply that later. And I'm going to bring this up when I talk about each kind of assignment that I have. And so I'll break that apart into talking about the pre-lecture versus the post-lecture. In my syllabus, every single class session has homework assigned to it, again, because I think that's important for them to keep up on a regular basis with their assignments and with studying so that the exam doesn't hit and they're trying to cram. If we flip over into LaunchPad itself, I think one of the most valuable views for me and perhaps for the students is the calendar view so that you can see what is due each day. And I do have it set up now so that the assignments are only visible 2 weeks before the due date, because in a past semester I had somebody who ran through and did all of the homework assignments in the first couple weeks. And my intention is for them to be ready when I discuss a particular chapter, that they're prepared for that discussion. If we look at another view from LaunchPad, I've ordered the homework chapters in the way that I cover them, which this view they're all in order, but they do go out of order later. And it also includes the pre-class and post-class homework. So if we look at it from a student view, which is nice, we can flip from the instructor view to see what the students actually see. You can see that there's a learning curve activity, which is my pre-class assignment, and then we have the post-class homework so that they can click on that easily and find it. I'll talk first about my pre-lecture homework, and then I'll talk about my post-lecture homework. So this, again, is from my syllabus. The pre-lecture assignment is due for each chapter. They're learning curve activities, and the idea is to read the textbook first to become familiar with the material, and then to do the pre-lecture assignment. And in learning curve, you have to reach a target score to get full credit. There's no partial credit. And again, the idea is I want them to be familiar with the material before I cover in lecture, so that it makes sense, hopefully. And it's due at noon, the day of the lecture, and then later they can go back to learning curve and get more questions, for example, to study for exams. This is in LaunchPad. The normal pattern is to have the pre-class homework for a particular chapter due and the post-class homework from the past chapter due on the same day. I do give them time at the beginning of the semester to get access, so I don't have any assignments due that first week, which means in the second week, we start on the 11th. In the second week, we have a whole bunch of assignments due, but I emphasized from the very first day of class and sent out emails that these homeworks were due and they should get started early rather than waiting until the 20th to start. And this semester, I did have an issue with students not knowing the difference between 12 a.m. and 12 p.m., and so they thought that it was due at midnight when it was actually due at noon, and so I extended the deadline to 11:55, which was really easy to do. And I do send out email reminders for students that 24 hours in advance that a homework is due. The only potential problem is you get your overachievers who are worried that they've done their homework and now they're getting this email that says that they need to do it, so they email you to make sure that it was done and it was all good. So I send it out that it's, you know, everyone gets this, whether you've done it or not, and if you've done it, that's a great job, but if you haven't, then you need to keep up with your assignments. This is inside actually assigning learning curve, and so it covers the entire chapter, and I'll speak about that in a minute. And you choose what target score your students are going to have to achieve in order to get credit. So it gives you some details about how to choose a target score. And again, you either get the credit or not. There's no partial credit in learning curve. And for my students, so I had, at this point, 57 students had taken it, and I could take a look and see where they were having troubles in terms of the chapter before the explanation. Learning Curve is an adaptive program. In other words, an algorithm picks questions based on student responses. And I actually didn't use it for the first 2 years that I used this book because I couldn't control what questions were asked or how many questions were asked. I thought it was, you know, going to ask questions on material that I don't cover, and that it would ask a lot of questions and frustrate poor students, especially with material that I didn't feel that I didn't cover from the textbook. I actually started using it after students told me how useful it was, that they were using it to study without being assigned, without being worth credit. They were using it to study for exams and found it to be very helpful. And so what I did was I changed it to pre-class homework, and then it's okay to cover the entire chapter because that's my assignment, to read the entire chapter. And I gave a relatively low target score to get a few questions per section so that students would cover the entire chapter but not go into great detail. And then students can go back later and do more questions at higher levels of difficulty to get ready for the exam. And I do caution them that Learning Curve covers the entire chapter, while I may or may not do that in my actual lectures. Then post-class homework is due after we complete a chapter, and they're more difficult questions. They're similar to but not the same as exam questions. So that's a decision you have to make, whether homework questions are actually exam questions, and I don't do that. And then I'll bring the results into class and we can discuss it in case there are particular problems that I see most of the classes having. And again, these are due at noon, and it's due the class session after the chapter is given. This is a normal 10-question quiz from a pool of questions. I specifically pick the questions. I choose more application analysis kinds of questions. I can modify the questions to meet the things that I know I want my students to know. I have a very large pool of questions to discourage cheating, and the answers are only provided after the due date. Similar kind of interface here where you can assign when they're due, send out an email to remind them to get it done, right? And again, I gave them the first week to get started. That's why you see a big cluster here due on the 20th. And I asked that I have it due at noon for a 4 p.m. class, so I have time to look at the results and take a couple screenshots and bring those in during the lecture to talk about most missed questions. The email reminder is always nice. Again, you have those over-enthusiastic students who are concerned that they did do their homework, and somehow you're saying that they didn't. So you do need to be ready for that. Inside the quiz settings now, I can choose how many attempts. So I give them a couple attempts, use the highest score. I don't put time limits. I took an online course, and when I saw that counter, that counting down, it made me really nervous. So I'm more interested in them getting the right answer and thinking than in achieving some score, some minimum time limit. And I do put all the questions on there at once so they can scroll back and forth and look at the questions. I allow them to save and continue so that they can come back later and finish their homework if they need to. They don't have to do it all in one sitting. And I do randomize question order and order within the questions. And you'll notice that they can only see the answers after the due date has passed. And you can choose, this one was visible from the very beginning, but I have them due 2 weeks before it starts. Again, I want them to take their time and do well, so I'm giving them settings that allow that to happen. Only seeing the correct answers after the due date to discourage group work, and then not having those assignments visible too far in advance. This is actually inside picking the questions and creating your pool. So you can choose whether you're going to use learning curve questions that they might have seen before. You can choose to use questions from the exam book bank in the homework. And so those are choices that you make. I don't use any of those questions on my actual exams. And then I create, again, a pool of questions so that it discourages cheating. These are the results. I've covered up my student names, and this was actually before the due date, and so I had quite a few students that were getting their work done, which was great. And it's probably no surprise that the first students getting the homework done are doing really well, and I can take a look at what their scores look like individually, but then I can see an overview for the questions, and it gives me the difficulty and the discrimination. So the difficulty is based on the number of students who've answered the question and the percentage of students who got it right and wrong. So if everybody is getting the question wrong, then I have to look and see if there's a problem with the question, or this would be an excellent one to take into class and talk about what the misconception is, or what approach you should use on a test to answer multiple choice questions like this. And then discrimination is calculated as the correlation between how well the students answered the question and how well the students did on the assessment. So in other words, if a student is getting all the questions right, but then misses this one, or the opposite, where they're usually getting questions wrong, but they get this one right, it can lead you to think that maybe there's something going on with that question. In class, I'll bring the difficult questions in to talk about content issues, modeling how to answer questions. Again, homework questions are not test questions, but they're like test questions. And I think students need to learn how to answer multiple choice questions. It's a skill that needs to be taught for them to be successful. And that's the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Okay, have you noticed a change in student performance or engagement since you started using LaunchPad and Learning Curve?
I would like to say yes, but realistically, we're an open enrollment university, and especially in these freshman courses, there's such a wide diversity of students who are really well prepared and then who are horribly underprepared. And so the very well prepared students, homework probably wouldn't matter to them because they're going to do well regardless. They know how to study, they know how to get their work done. The aim is to get those middle students that you can influence to do better. And I think that that has been the case because I see that they're asking questions because now they've thought about those homework questions and they're thinking more about, well, why did I get that right or why did I get that wrong? And so I think it does make a difference.
Okay. Do you ever use individual student scores to reach out to students?
I don't. I think it's up to them to ask for help. There certainly would be value to that. On the other hand, I don't want to put them, call them to the carpet, call them to my office kind of thing and say, why aren't you doing better? Or, or even, the nice way is to offer help if they're having problems. They're adults. They need to recognize that sooner or later in college that they're going to have to accept responsibility and make changes. For me to single them out, even if it's not in a way that the rest of the class knows, obviously, I think it would make students uncomfortable. So I don't do that.
Thank you. How long did it take you to prepare to use it for the first time, and how long before you were comfortable with it?
I'm probably not a good model because I've done a lot of work for publishers and used a lot of different homework systems. And so I did think LaunchPad was really easy to set up. It comes with pre-done assignments. And so, LaunchPad, you just have to click a few things and you're ready to go. If you're going to use some of the already designed homework assignments, they're ready to go. And so it's a great base to get started with. I like the picking and the choosing and the modifying, so that takes time the first time you do it, but then I can use it every semester I teach. So, that's work invested, well invested in my case. And the reports, it takes a little bit to figure out, what's important, what's not for you. But again, once you make those decisions the first time through, then you have a lot more confidence going forward. So I thought it was a really easy homework system to use, both the Learning Curve and the LaunchPad, and it was fast to get up and going. And now I'm just tweaking things. There are lots of things that are offered by the publisher, and I don't think I take advantage of enough of them. So now I can look at some of the more exciting aspects and start using those.
Did you encounter any issues when you departed from the chapter order?
No. I do this thing that, again, I have freshmen, and so I put the syllabus up every single class meeting and say, this is where we are, this is where we're going. And then at the end of class, I put the syllabus back up and say, okay, this is what we just finished and this is what we're doing next. And the email that goes out to students reminds them, you know, that the homework is due from a particular chapter. So there are students that argue about, well, I didn't know we were going to go out of order. On the other hand, if you're reminding them on a regular basis, they don't have a lot to go on. So in other courses, I jump around from one chapter to another, and so the idea of just taking one chapter, the whole chapter out of order is not a major problem compared to my course where I literally jump around the entire book.
Great. That wraps up the questions. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who attended. You'll receive an email from me in the next few days with a recording. And yeah, thanks again.